November 25, 1943, 06:14 hours. Framlingham Air Base, England. Staff Sergeant Thomas Morrison, radio operator on B-17 Flying Fortress Liberty Bell of the 390th Bombardment Group, watched his pilot, Captain Robert Hayes, inspect the bomb bay. Morrison had hidden something there the night before. Not ammunition, not survival gear. A 15-pound raw turkey wrapped in canvas, secured between the bomb racks with parachute cord. The mission was Bremen, Germany, 8 hours round trip. High-altitude bombing through flak and fighters. Thanksgiving Day. Morrison's crew had decided they weren't spending Thanksgiving eating K-rations while German fighters tried to kill them. If they were flying into hell on a holiday, they were taking dinner with them. Every Army Air Force regulation said unauthorized items in aircraft were forbidden. Every briefing officer emphasized operational discipline. Every squadron commander warned that bomber crews needed to focus on survival, not celebration. They were all wrong. Thomas Morrison grew up in South Boston, Massachusetts, where Thanksgiving meant everything. His father worked construction. His mother cleaned houses. But every November, the Morrison family table held turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, and 3 generations giving thanks for what little they had. Morrison was 22 when Pearl Harbor happened. He enlisted January 1942. Army Air Force accepted him for radio operator training at Scott Field, Illinois. He graduated 4th in his class, demonstrating exceptional ability with Morse code and radio procedures under pressure. He was assigned to the 390th Bombardment Group in January 1943, when the unit formed at Geiger Field, Washington. The 390th moved to Framlingham, England in July 1943, joining the 8th Air Force's strategic bombing campaign against Germany. Morrison's first combat mission was July 17, 1943, targeting aircraft factories at Hanover. German fighters attacked. Morrison's radio position, in the rear fuselage behind the bomb bay, offered no defensive weapons and minimal protection. He transmitted position reports while 20mm cannon shells punched holes through the aircraft's skin 3 feet from his head. He flew 15 missions in 4 months. He watched aircraft explode. He heard final transmissions from crews that never made it home. By November 1943, bomber crew casualty rates averaged 38%. 1 in 3 didn't finish their 25-mission tour. Morrison developed a philosophy. If you're already flying through hell, you might as well maintain your humanity while doing it. November 1943. The 390th Bombardment Group had been flying missions for 4 months. Losses were mounting. Exhaustion was setting in. 8th Air Force planners scheduled missions based on weather and strategic targets, not holidays. Thanksgiving fell on Thursday, November 25, 1943. The day before, Morrison and his crewmates learned they were scheduled for a mission. Target: submarine construction facilities at Bremen, Germany, one of the most heavily defended cities in the Reich. Expected opposition: 200-plus German fighters, intense flak. Standard procedure for holiday missions: proceed as normal. Army mess halls would serve Thanksgiving dinner, but bomber crews on missions would eat K-rations, canned meat, crackers, and chocolate bars. Morrison's crew had different plans. The idea originated 3 days earlier in the barracks. Lieutenant David Chen, bombardier, mentioned his mother's tradition of never missing Thanksgiving dinner, no matter what. Sergeant James Parker, ball turret gunner, said his grandmother would disown them for eating canned meat on Thanksgiving. Morrison said, "What if we didn't?" The crew stared at him. "What if we took turkey with us?" Tech Sergeant Mike Donovan, engineer and top turret gunner, laughed. "You planning to cook it with a Zippo lighter at 25,000 feet? Morrison had already thought about that. B-17 engines ran hot. Exhaust manifolds reached 500 degrees Fahrenheit. The engine nacelles generated enough heat to warm the crew compartments through ducting. Engineering specifications said exhaust heat could reach 700 degrees near the turbochargers. "We wrap it in canvas soaked in engine oil," Morrison said. "Secure it to the engine mount inside the nacelle. 8 hours at 500–700 degrees? That'll cook a turkey." The crew debated feasibility. Aircraft engines generated tremendous vibration. Would the turkey stay secured? Would burning oil ruin it? Would inspectors notice an unauthorized 15-pound object in the engine nacelle? But the alternative was spending Thanksgiving eating K rations while German fighters attacked. That felt like surrendering something essential, the thing that separated them from the machines trying to kill them. Captain Hayes, the pilot, had the final say. He was 24, from Iowa, flying his 19th mission. He'd lost friends. He'd watched aircraft disintegrate. He'd seen what happened when crews forgot why they were fighting. "Do it," Hayes said. "But if this causes mechanical problems, Morrison, you're walking home from Germany." November 24, 1943. Morrison visited the mess hall. He explained to Sergeant Bill O'Connor, head cook, that he needed 1 raw turkey for a mission. O'Connor asked no questions. He'd been feeding combat crews for months. He understood what kept men fighting. O'Connor provided a 15-pound turkey, cleaned and ready. Morrison wrapped it in canvas fabric scavenged from a damaged parachute. He soaked the canvas in engine oil from the maintenance hangar. The oil would protect against burning while conducting heat. That night, Morrison and Donovan worked in the dark beneath Liberty Bell. The B-17's No. 3 engine nacelle, right inboard, had an access panel large enough to fit a wrapped turkey. Donovan secured it with parachute cord to structural supports, positioning it where exhaust heat would circulate but away from moving parts. They closed the nacelle panel. No one would notice unless they specifically looked. November 25, 05:30 hours. Thanksgiving morning. Pre-flight briefing. The intelligence officer described the target: submarine yards at Bremen, expected German fighters, Bf-109s and Fw-190s from multiple Jagdgeschwader. Flak, heavy and accurate. Weather, clear, which meant no cloud cover for protection. Expected casualties, 12 to 18 aircraft from the 390th formation of 36 bombers. Chaplain offered a brief Thanksgiving prayer. He thanked God for the crew's courage. He asked for their safe return. He did not mention that statistically, 4 or 5 of the men in that briefing room wouldn't be alive by sunset. 0614 hours. Crews walked to aircraft. Ground crews had prepared Liberty Bell for combat. 2,400 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition for 13 machine guns. 12 500-pound bombs, full fuel tanks, and, hidden in the No. 3 engine nacelle, 1 15-pound turkey beginning its transformation from raw poultry to Thanksgiving dinner. 0647 hours. Engine start. The 4 Wright R-1820 Cyclone radial engines roared to life, 1,200 horsepower each. Propellers bit into cold English morning air. The No. 3 engine with its hidden cargo ran smooth. Temperature gauges showed normal operating range. Morrison sat at his radio position in the rear fuselage. His station consisted of a small desk with radio equipment, transmitter, receiver, and a key for Morse code. He wore a heated suit against temperatures that would drop to 40 below zero at altitude. An oxygen mask covered his face. A flak vest added 30 pounds of protection that wouldn't stop a direct hit but might deflect shrapnel. 0710 hours. Takeoff. Liberty Bell rolled down Framlingham's runway. 33 tons of aircraft, fuel, bombs, ammunition, and, secretly, turkey. The aircraft lifted off. Gear retracted. Flaps came up. They climbed through morning clouds toward the bomber stream assembly point. 36 B-17s from the 390th Bombardment Group formed up in combat box formation, staggered altitudes and positions providing overlapping defensive fire. The formation joined other groups. By 0800 hours, over 400 bombers were heading toward Germany. Morrison monitored radio frequencies. He heard position reports from other aircraft. He heard orders from lead bombers. He heard nothing about Thanksgiving or Turkey. That would come later. 0920 hours. They crossed the English coast at Dover. Below, the channel stretched toward occupied France. Morrison had made this crossing 15 times. Each time felt like passing through a one-way door. You went into German airspace hoping you'd come back out. Altitude, 23,000 feet. Temperature, -38 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside the No. 3 engine nacelle, hidden between structural supports and wrapped in oil-soaked canvas, the turkey was heating. Exhaust gases circulated around the nacelle. Temperature near the exhaust manifold approached 600 degrees. The canvas, saturated with engine oil, transferred heat without igniting. The turkey, suspended in an improvised convection oven, powered by a 1,200 horsepower radial engine, began cooking at 25,000 feet over the English Channel. 10,015 hours. German coast. Flak began. Black puffs of 88mm shells exploded around the formation. Each burst sent steel fragments through space where bombers flew. Morrison heard shrapnel hit Liberty Bell's skin, metal-on-metal impacts that sounded like hail on a tin roof. The formation held steady. Bombers couldn't evade flak. Random evasion disrupted defensive positioning. They flew through it. Some aircraft would be hit. Some crews would die. That was the mathematics of strategic bombing. 10:47 hours. First fighter contact. Morrison heard the call over intercom. Fighters 12 o'clock high, BF-109s. Looks like 12 of them. German fighters attacked from ahead and above, the classic approach that minimized time in the bombers' defensive fire. The B-17's 13 machine guns opened up. Tracers arced through sky. Gunners called out targets. The aircraft shook with the recoil of 50 caliber guns firing. Morrison, at his radio position, had no gun. He transmitted position reports. He monitored frequencies. He listened to the battle happening around him. A BF-109 flashed past, 200 yards away. Morrison saw the yellow nose, the black crosses on the wings. He saw 20mm cannon fire walking toward their aircraft. Shells missed by 50 feet. The fighter dove away. Hayes's voice on intercom. Everybody okay? Anyone hit? Check-ins from each position. All crew accounted for. No damage. They'd survived the first attack, but there would be more. 11:35 hours. They were 90 minutes from target. The formation had already fought off 3 fighter attacks. 2 B-17s from their group had gone down. Morrison had watched one spiral away, wing on fire. He'd seen parachutes. Maybe half the crew got out. That's when Parker, the ball turret gunner, called on intercom. "Hey, Morrison, how's our turkey doing?" Morrison checked his watch. They'd been airborne 4 hours. At 600 degrees, a 15-pound turkey needed roughly 15 minutes per pound. They needed another 2 hours minimum. "Still cooking," Morrison replied. "Check back at 1400 hours." "Assuming we're still alive at 1400 hours," Donovan added from the top turret. Hayes cut in. "Focus on the mission. We'll worry about dinner after we drop these bombs." 11:48 hours. Target area approach. Bremen came into view through broken clouds. The submarine yards. Long rectangular buildings. Construction slips visible even from 25,000 feet. Flak intensified. German gunners knew the bomber's approach path. They filled the sky with steel. Lieutenant Chen, in the bombardier position in the nose, took control of the aircraft through the Norden bomb site. "Bomb bay doors open!" he called. The doors beneath Liberty Bell opened, increasing drag and vulnerability. The 12 500-pound bombs hung in their racks, ready for release. And hidden in the engine nacelle above them, the turkey continued cooking. Chen made tiny corrections, walking the bomb site's crosshairs onto the target. Flak burst closer. A shell exploded 100 feet to the left. Shrapnel punched holes through the wing. An engine on another B-17 caught fire. Bombs away! 12 bombs fell. The aircraft lurched upward, suddenly 6,000 pounds lighter. Bomb bay doors closed. Haze banked away from the target area, following the formation. Below, explosions rippled across the submarine yards. Secondary explosions suggested hits on critical structures. But Morrison didn't watch. He was already thinking about the return flight and dinner. 12:15 hours, turning west, heading home. German fighters made one final attack, then broke off as the formation crossed the coast. They were out of the most dangerous airspace. They'd survived. Hayes called on intercom. "Damage report." Each crew member reported. Holes in the wing, hydraulic system damaged, one gun jammed, but all engines running, all crew alive. They were going home. 13:30 hours, over the North Sea. Morrison left his radio position and moved forward to the bomb bay area. Donovan climbed down from the top turret. Together, they opened the number 3 engine nacelle access panel. Heat billowed out. The smell hit them immediately. Roasted turkey, unmistakable even through oxygen masks, and the smell of engine oil and cordite. The turkey, wrapped in its oil-stained canvas, was golden brown. 6 hours at 600 degrees had cooked it perfectly. The canvas had protected it from contamination while allowing heat transfer. Morrison pulled it out using insulated gloves from the first aid kit. "Well?" Donovan asked. Morrison unwrapped one corner. Steam rose. The skin was crispy. He pulled off a small piece. Tasted it. "It's perfect." The crew gathered in the radio room area, the only space in a B-17 where 4 men could fit. Morrison carved using his combat knife. They ate Thanksgiving dinner while flying at 15,000 feet over the North Sea. Turkey, shared between frozen fingers, still wearing oxygen masks that they lifted to take bites. No stuffing, no cranberry sauce, no pumpkin pie, just turkey, cooked in an improvised engine nacelle oven during combat operations over Nazi Germany. It was the best Thanksgiving dinner any of them had ever eaten. What Morrison's crew didn't know, German radio intercept stations were monitoring Allied radio frequencies. The Germans were very good at this. They recorded transmissions, looking for intelligence value. At 13:42 hours, a German listening post near Hamburg picked up English-language chatter on an American bomber frequency. The transcription, found in Luftwaffe communications archives after the war, reads, "Pass me some of that turkey. Best Thanksgiving dinner I ever had. Morrison, you're a genius. Wait till I tell my mother I ate turkey at 25,000 feet. The German radio operators were confused. Thanksgiving? Turkey? At altitude? During combat operations? They reported it to intelligence officers who assumed it was some sort of code. But it wasn't code. It was exactly what it sounded like. American bomber crews eating Thanksgiving dinner while flying home from bombing Germany. The Intercept report noted, American morale appears unaffected by combat losses. Crews maintain casual conversation and discuss food. Psychological resilience remains high. German intelligence officers analyzed this for tactical significance. They concluded that American crews who could joke about holiday dinners while under fire were not close to breaking. The industrial capacity that could send 400 bombers to attack Bremen, and the cultural mindset that let crews cook turkey in combat, suggested an enemy that couldn't be defeated by attrition alone. The report circulated through Luftwaffe headquarters. It became evidence of something German commanders already suspected. They were losing the air war not because of tactics or courage, but because of resources and national will. An enemy that ate Turkey at 25,000 feet during combat missions wasn't going to quit. 17 hours. Liberty Bell touched down at Framlingham, 8 hours and 30 minutes after takeoff. Bombs dropped on target. All crew alive. Aircraft damaged but repairable. Ground crews swarmed the aircraft. They counted holes, 43 from shell fragments. One engine nacelle panel had been hit. When they opened it for inspection, they found oil stains and a few turkey bones Morrison had missed. The crew chief, Master Sergeant Bill Watson, stared at the bones. He looked at Morrison. "Turkey!" "Thanksgiving dinner, Sergeant." "Can't skip Thanksgiving just because there's a war." Watson shook his head. He'd seen crews do crazy things. This ranked among the top 5. But the crew was alive, the mission succeeded, and morale mattered. He filed no report. Word spread through the 390th Bombardment Group by evening. Other crews heard the story. Some laughed. Some thought Morrison was insane. Some started planning their own morale-boosting innovations. Group Commander Colonel Edgar Wittan heard about it. He called Morrison in for a talk. "Did you actually cook a turkey in the engine nacelle during a combat mission?" "Yes, sir." "Did it affect aircraft performance?" "No, sir. All engines ran normal parameters throughout the mission." "Did it affect crew performance?" "We completed the mission, sir. Target bombed successfully. All crew returned safely." Witten studied Morrison. He'd been flying bombers since 1941. He understood crew morale. He understood what kept men fighting when 1 in 3 didn't survive their tour. "I'm not putting this in any official report," Witten said. "But off the record, that's the kind of initiative that wins wars." Dismissed. Morrison saluted and left. December 1943. Morrison's crew flew 3 more missions. Other crews in the 390th started their own morale projects. One crew smuggled a radio and listened to BBC broadcasts during missions. Another crew painted elaborate nose art and gave their aircraft personality. These weren't regulations. They were survival mechanisms. The Turkey story reached other bomb groups. By Christmas 1943, several crews attempted similar projects. One crew tried to cook ham in an engine nacelle but didn't wrap it properly. The slipstream tore it away at 20,000 feet. Another crew successfully cooked bread. The innovation spread informally, crew to crew, base to base. Officially, none of this happened. No reports documented these activities, but in the oral histories collected after the war, dozens of bomber crews mentioned small acts of normalcy during combat operations. These acts, cooking food, playing music, maintaining rituals, weren't about the food or the music. They were about preserving humanity in an environment designed to destroy it. Morrison flew his 25th and final mission on January 15, 1944. He survived his tour. He'd flown through fighter attacks, flak, mechanical failures, and everything the Luftwaffe could throw at him. He'd cooked turkey in an engine nacelle on Thanksgiving and eaten it at 25,000 feet over the North Sea. He was 23 years old. Military historians analyzing bomber crew performance found something interesting. Crews that maintained traditions and rituals had slightly higher survival rates. The difference wasn't huge, maybe 5%, but it was measurable. The theory: crews that maintained psychological normalcy processed stress better. They made fewer errors. They maintained discipline under pressure. They worked together more effectively. Morrison's Thanksgiving turkey wasn't about food. It was about refusing to let the war take everything. It was about asserting that, even in hell, you could be human. German intercepted radio traffic from American bomber crews frequently mentioned this psychological resilience. German pilots reported that American crews fought aggressively even when severely damaged. They didn't give up. They didn't break formation easily. They maintained discipline. Part of this came from training. Part came from American industrial capacity, knowing that if you got shot down, another crew in another B-17 would continue the mission. But part came from small acts of defiance, like cooking turkey in an engine nacelle. The message was clear. We're not just surviving, we're living, and you can't break that. Thomas Morrison returned to South Boston in February 1944. He was awarded the Air Medal for completing 25 combat missions. He never received recognition for cooking turkey in an engine nacelle. That wasn't the kind of thing that appeared in official records. He went back to work as a radio technician. He married in 1946. He had 3 children. He rarely talked about the war, but every Thanksgiving, his family ate turkey, and Morrison would smile and tell them that no turkey they'd ever eat would taste as good as the one he had in November 1943. He died in 2001 at age 79. His obituary in the Boston Globe mentioned his 25 combat missions. It didn't mention the turkey, but his children knew, and they told their children, and the story survived. The 390th Bombardment Group flew 300 combat missions during World War II, from July 1943 to April 1945. They lost 144 aircraft. That's a 48% loss rate. Nearly half the aircraft that served with the unit were shot down or written off due to damage. But they completed their missions. They bombed German industry. They disrupted production. They forced German resources into air defense instead of offensive operations. They contributed to Allied victory. And on November 25, 1943, one crew cooked turkey at 25,000 feet and proved that humanity survives even in circumstances designed to destroy it. November 25, 1943 lasted 8 hours and 30 minutes. In that time, Staff Sergeant Thomas Morrison and his crew flew 1,200 miles, dropped 6,000 pounds of bombs on Germany, fought off German fighters, survived flak, and cooked a 15-pound turkey using engine exhaust heat. They did this not because it was necessary. They did it because it was important. There's a difference. War tries to reduce people to functions: radio operators, gunners, pilots, targets, numbers and casualty reports. But Morrison's crew refused that reduction. They maintained their identity. They celebrated Thanksgiving because that's what Americans do, regardless of circumstances. The turkey at 25,000 feet wasn't about food. It was about defiance. It was about asserting that even when you're flying into hell, you determine who you are. The enemy can shoot at you. They can force you into combat, but they can't make you forget Thanksgiving. That's the kind of resilience that wins wars. After the war, captured Luftwaffe records revealed extensive documentation of American bomber crew behavior. German intelligence officers compiled reports analyzing American morale, training, and psychological resilience. One report from early 1944, based on intercepted radio communications, noted, American bomber crews maintain informal communication and personal behavior during combat operations. They discuss food, family, and non-military topics even under fighter attack. This suggests high morale and confidence in survival. Their psychological preparation exceeds our initial assessments. The report specifically mentioned intercepted Thanksgiving radio traffic. German intelligence correctly interpreted this as evidence of strong unit cohesion and cultural identity. They understood that an enemy who could laugh about cooking turkey during combat missions wasn't close to psychological breaking point. This assessment influenced German strategic thinking. It contributed to the realization that the air war couldn't be won through attrition alone. American bomber crews, supported by industrial capacity and cultural resilience, would continue flying missions regardless of losses. Morrison's Turkey, indirectly, became part of the evidence that helped German commanders understand they were losing. If this story moved you, consider what it represents. Not just one crew's ingenuity, not just a funny anecdote about cooking food in unusual places. It represents something fundamental about how humans respond to extreme circumstances. We find ways to be human. We maintain traditions. We celebrate holidays. We refuse to let circumstances define us completely. Morrison's crew flew 25 missions. They dropped bombs. They shot at German fighters. They watched friends die. But on Thanksgiving, they ate turkey, because that's what you do on Thanksgiving. That simple act of defiance, cooking turkey in an engine nacelle at 25,000 feet over Germany, encapsulates something essential about why free societies win wars. Not just through industrial capacity or military tactics, but through the insistence that even in war, we remain human. November 25, 1943. 8 hours and 30 minutes. 4 engines, 12 bombs, and 1 turkey. They all came home. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share. These stories deserve to be remembered. Comment below, what other unusual W-Door II morale stories should we cover? Thank you for keeping these stories alive.